Welcome to Movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take good care. Kill Command is the name of the movie. Please like and subscribe to get every update. Within the close future, the Herald Enterprise includes an exceptionally progressed robot production line where a cyborg named Plants works. Whereas supervising the most recent models, she gets a vital message in her mind. The Precursor I Preparing Office has found a few inconsistencies within the demonstrate known as SAR, or Think About Analyze Reconstruct. Process quickly reports to her boss that there's been a reconstruct tally for 1.5 million in fair one day, but he fair salutes her on it. Afterward at a military base, Captain Books learns from Wanderer that they're being sent on a preparing work out for 2 days on a faraway island. Books isn't cheerful around this since his group has as of now been on preparing the final 4 times out, but he has no choice but to comply. On his way out, he's drawn closer by Plants, who clarifies she's coming as well since she must check on the preparing equipment. Books doesn't believe her and considers Precursors sent her to keep an eye on the group. Once the plane takes off, Plants employments her scanner to memorize more almost each group part, taking note that Robinson has tech inserts on his eyes. When he points his rifle at her and says he sees her, Mills disarms the weapon with fair hacking C, indicating out that she might indeed fire it from a remote place in the event that she needed. When they're almost to reach, Books reminds the group that they'll be checked so they must carry on. Plants is astounded that she can't get to the worldwide range any longer and has no choice but to alter to the neighborhood one. The group arrives at the preparing office, and in any case they can't discover a single individual anyplace, so they ponder who is gathered to be checking them. As the plane takes off, Plants inquires Books on the off chance that he has any ground back or recon, but he doesn't. After crossing a passage within the office, the group comes out to find a forest. They set up a ramble, and after that they get going, spreading out with Plants at the back. She takes note an unidentified ramble among the trees, but she doesn't say anything. Before long they discover the preparing spot and start moving to their positions, as it were to all of a sudden be encompassed by bizarre reconnaissance rambles. Stray raises his weapon, but Plants stops him as she clarifies these rambles have been quantum modified, meaning they do not have administrators. The drones watch them for many seconds, but do nothing, so Books orders everybody to keep going. Minutes afterward, they at last discover their targets and are disappointed to see their exceptionally essential robots. They rapidly make a range of assault and spread out to open fire with an assortment of weapons, from bullets to genuine rockets, whereas the rambles record all their strategies. In fair a matter of seconds, all the targets have been crushed. In the interim, Plants chooses to take after a ramble and in the long run comes over SAR, so she instantly tries to get to it. She's exceptionally confounded when she isn't able to see into its programming, and to form things more regrettable, the SAR all of a sudden turns around and uncovers there's blood on its head. As she closes her eyes, Plants observes a few film from the unit's preparing program and is exasperated to see the SAR shooting different individuals right in their faces. When she opens her eyes, the SAR is gone, so Plants goes back to the team. Within the evening, the group sets up camp and takes a break, whereas examining Plants, who right now is sitting alone and analyzing the data she's assembled. Stray checks on her and comments on the reality their radios don't work, but Mills hasn't been able to get to the worldwide range either, meaning something is certainly blocking their transmissions. At that point, Wanderer inquires Plants approximately her chip, so she offers her story. When she was 11 she had loss of motion, so she acknowledged the sponsorship from Herald that cured her. A while later Stray reports to Books that Plants doesn't have comms either, so Books gets to be indeed more suspicious of this endeavor. Sometime recently everybody goes to bed. Plants takes note there still are parts of rambles within the woodland. Minutes afterward, whereas Plants rests, the unusual film she got from SAR keeps playing in her eyes. In the interim, Loftus is keeping watch when he's abruptly drawn closer by a ramble, but he just tells it to induce absent. The ramble flies back as it were to uncover something among the trees. It's SAR, who instantly comes after him. Loftus doesn't falter to open fire to protect himself. Within the camp, Plants wakes up when she listens everyone arguing over a few unusual clamors, and Goodwin swears he saw Loftus vanish. The group enters the woodland to seek for Loftus, but it isn't until morning that they discover a few blood on the grass. Taking after this clue, they're exasperated to find Loftus' body against a tree. The gather gets in a cautious position as Plants analyzes the region, finding they're on their target spot from yesterday. At that minute a ramble appears up and watches them for a moment, sometime recently taking off, as it were for a sudden shot to murder one of the officers. A gather of robots shows up within the timberland within the same position the group was in recently and opens fire on them, so the group surges to cover up behind trees, and fortunately no one gets harmed. When the shots halt, the soldiers throw out a few smoke explosives in a range to run absent beneath the security of the mist. The robots start shooting once more and the soldiers fire back as they run, but Books takes a reroute to approach the machines from the side. He shoots one of them but causes no harm, and when the robots see him they quickly go away. Meanwhile, a trooper inadvertently gets isolated from the group and 3 rambles find him, but he scares them off with many shots. Tragically, he's found by SAR, who lifts him up so another robot can slaughter him. Back to the group, Books explains that the robots he saw are way more progressed than those from recently rapidly and orders Plants to close them all off. Be that as it may, Plants says she can't sense there's a programming blunder, so she's right now running the conceivable outcomes. Books doesn't accept her and focuses out that botches aren't this proficient. At that minute, Robinson returns from searching for their lost officer, but he's only found his protective cap. The group chooses to induce moving once more to keep on looking. As they make their way through the forest, Books can't halt considering almost why the robots let them go rather than slaughtering them all, and ponders on the off chance that it was since Plants was with them. The discussion is hindered when they come over a bunch of dead creatures that the robots have been utilizing as target hone, and they realized Loftus was utilized for the same. Abruptly, the robots return on the edge and quickly open fire, so the group begins running absent as quick as they can. Plants nearly gets shot, but Books pushes her out of the way fair in time, causing them to roll down the slope and absent from the bunch. Plants lands against a tree and immediately falls oblivious. Vagabond, Goodwin, and Robinson attempt to urge in contact with them to no profit, so they fair keep moving. Within the evening, Books carries Plants to the office entrance and at long last makes contact with the others, who return to their camp. The trio needs to go to him, but Books orders them to remain since the darkness would make them simple casualties for the robots. Instead, they concur to regroup in the morning. Minutes afterward, a Ramble appears up and observes Books for a moment, sometime recently clearing out. A stressed Books gets Plants and covers up behind the wall as SAR comes closer. Be that as it may, the robot as it were actuates something that creates Plants open her eyes for a brief minute, as in the event that there was data being traded. At that point, SAR basically takes off. The another morning, Plants wakes up and Books tells her what happened last night. Mills says they have to be discovered that SAR, but when Books inquires why, she's incapable to clarify it. Books orders her to discover a great reason. At that point, they take off to rejoin with the others. Everybody is fine and Vagabond clarifies they shockingly weren't followed, even if the robots could have easily done so. Once Plants affirms it's clear ahead, which all the signals are behind them, they choose to go back to the drop point and hold up for transport to choose them up. Since as it were Plants can open the entryway of the office, Books will take her down the street, whereas the others give cover from the timberland. They make it to the door pretty rapidly, and whereas Plants works on hacking the bolt, the Rambles appear up and toss a couple of smoke explosives, replicating the team's claimed strategy. At that minute, the robots show up within the woodland and open fire, so the soldiers try to run as it were for stray to induce shot in the leg. As the trio stows away absent from the overwhelming fire, Plants oversees to open the entryway, and Books chooses to go and rescue his group. Wanderer sends Goodwin and Robinson running, whereas he remains back to supply cover. Shockingly, he gets shot once more right sometime recently. SAR appears up and pins Stray down. Books tries his best to fire at the robots to keep them back to no profit, and when Plants takes note the delay, she runs toward them, causing all the robots to halt shooting as before long as they see her. Then Mills tries to close them down, but she can't, and SAR uncovers a weapon to cut Stray open. Plants demands she can do this and inquires the others not to shoot, but since she still makes no advance, Books shoots Wanderer to spare him from SAR's torment. As the robots take the body absent, the group finally enters the office and Plants snaps at Books, all of a sudden uncovering that she made these robots. This island is usually utilized by Marines to prepare, and Plants knows Books' group was asked, but she swears she doesn't know why. Her robot prototypes are as a rule tried here as well, but the codes have progressed more than she seemed ever envision. These robots are gathered to be substitutions for human warriors, so they learn and move forward themselves a bit like individuals. Books is angry to hear all this and says it's Mills' blame that his men are dead. At that minute, they take note the robots are gradually cutting the front door open, so they ought to discover distant better, a much better, a higher, a stronger, and improved a higher protective position. Plants opens a door to another room, and when she turns on the lights, they're alarmed to discover an entirety army of SAR robots. Gratefully, they're all off, so Plants opens another entryway, and they move into a room where they discover the bodies of all the office representatives. Plants interfaces to the computer, but she still can't communicate with the exterior world, so Books begins making a range to moderate down the robots from there. All of a sudden, Plants takes off, locking the entryway behind her to halt the officers from taking after her, whereas she returns to the room with the SAR units. She wakes a robot up and enacts its discourse program to begin inquiring questions. The robot's orders are to run the human combat program, and when Plants tries to cancel those orders, she finds she can't. The SAR clarifies it can't comply since the preparing subjects aren't performing as anticipated, so they require modern and more propelled targets. At that point, the robot begins filtering Plants, whereas affirming it was their program that brought the Marines here, but preparing completion is unspecified. Angry, Plants tries to get to the code once more but falls flat. At that point, the SAR begins actuating the other robots at the same time that the ones exterior at last break down the entryway and come in. For a moment, Plants considers it's over for her, but at that minute the troopers drive the entryway open as well and drag her interior, sometime recently closing it once more. As the robots start working on cutting this entryway open as well, Books wraps up setting up a few explosives. Sometime recently the group starts running absent. Tragically, the robots make their way interior as well rapidly and actuate the explosives, causing the blast to reach the group as well. Plants is additionally hit by an electromagnetic unsettling influence, which suggests the robots are carrying EMP projectiles. Luckily, the group oversees to slither their way out and finds a preparing zone that recreates a city. There are parts of surrendered gear and the bodies of the past Marine units. Whereas the troopers see around and assemble any weaponry they can discover, Plants goes into a burrow to require an EMP projectile from a fallen robot. At At that point, she looks at the film SAR took of the passing of her partners, which makes her cry with blame. Once they're legitimately outfitted, the warriors spread to hold up for the robots. Books checks on Plants and learns that the explosive ought to deactivate the SAR. Hitting the Pioneer ought to halt the other units as well. Be that as it may, the extend is brief, so they'll require a detonator. At that point, Plants clarifies that they haven't been slaughtered, however, since the robots pushed them out on reason to urge more preparing out of them. Books says the projectile may murder her as well, but Plants focuses out it's there as it were alternative. The group spends the entire night alert holding up for an assault, but the robots do not appear up until morning, whereas Goodwin stays hidden since he's got the detonators for the bombs they cleared out on the street. Books opens fire from behind a car and Robinson shoots from his position on the roof. Mills' scanners keep an eye on the roads, and once the robots begin walking down, she tells Goodwin to enact the primary bombs, which crush a number of enemies. Soon Robinson clears out the roof and stows away behind a window to keep shooting, and a SAR nearly comes to Books on the road, but the unstable kills it fair in time. Shockingly, a ramble tracks down Goodwin, so he must run. Absent some time recently, the robots discover him as well. Robinson proceeds to shoot from the window to cover for Books, who runs out to assist Goodwin, but this puts all the consideration on him and Robinson gets shot to passing by the robots. Eventually, Books and Goodwin discover a secure spot behind a divider, as it were to realize they dropped the final detonator on the road. Books has no choice but to go out once more, running to discover cover behind a car as the robots proceed to fire at him. At that minute, Plants shows up following to him and picks up the detonator, and her nearness stops the fire for presently. The robots still begin to come closer, so the team strolls in reverse to direct them to the area of the explosive. Abruptly, a robot shoots Plants on the bear, and once Books catches her, she enacts the EMP projectile. All the robots go down, whereas Plants is lively but breaking down. Shockingly, SAR before long recoups and comes after them, so Books brings Plants interior the building. As before long as she's able to move once more, Books tells her to go, whereas he remains at the stairs shooting at the robot. With almost no vitality cleared out, Plants slithers through the floor to discover Robinson's body, whereas Books runs out of bullets and SAR tosses him into the room as well. Be that as it may, SAR denies to murder Books since it still needs more information to total the program and goes after Plants instep. The robot stands over Plants as he requests identification from her, but Plants holds up persistently for the proper minute, sometime recently replying human and remotely shooting Robinson's rifle. As a damaged SAR falls to the ground, it interfaces to Mills' eyes and downloads a few data sometime recently, at last deactivating for great. At the same time, Mills closed down. Minutes afterward, a plane finally arrives to choose up Books, Goodwin, and Plants. Whereas they get prepared to board, Mills' eyes open, uncovering that SAR's mission convention is presently in her. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video.